Okay, let's dive right into this explainer. Today, we are unpacking a seriously brain-bending conceptual review from 2026 that tackles one of the biggest mysteries out there, the true nature of our subjective reality. The source material we're looking at proposes a completely fresh, highly compelling way of understanding how we actually experience the world, and honestly, how we even manage to communicate those inner experiences with each other. It is absolutely fascinating stuff.
To keep us on track, here is our roadmap. We are going to hit 1. The qualia identity problem. 2. Relational profiles and dynamics. 3. The fibre-bundle hypothesis. 4. Testing the structural theory. And finally 5. Understanding without identical minds.
All right, kicking things off with Section 1, the qualia identity problem, the search for experience. Now, you have probably asked yourself this classic question at some point. It's the ultimate puzzle of human perspective. When you and I both look at a stop sign and totally agree that it's red, are we actually having the exact same internal experience? Are our minds doing the exact same thing? Traditionally, researchers have driven themselves crazy looking for a single identical biological mechanism to prove this. But our source material asks us to just completely rethink that entire assumption.
And this brings us right to the concept of qualia. Qualia are the experienced qualitative contents of our minds. Think about the very specific redness of red, or the incredibly sharp sting of a paper cut. Because these qualia are entirely private to you, finding their exact biological footprint to prove we share a reality has historically been a massive roadblock in science.
Moving right along to Section 2, relational profiles and dynamics, from fingerprints to webs.
So, here is the absolute game changer. We have to stop viewing our experiences as these static, isolated dots. The old model, which we call intrinsic identity, was all about searching for an isolated fixed neurofingerprint. But the new model, relational identity, completely flips the script. It defines an experience through a dynamic, connected web of contrasts. Your experience of red is defined by how it relates to blue or green, how your physical body reacts to it, and how it connects to your specific past memories. It's not a dot, it's a continuous, living trajectory. The source breaks this massive paradigm shift down into 3 specific claims: weak, intermediate, and strong. For our purposes today, we are going to focus our attention heavily on the intermediate claim. This is the idea that context-bound, partial translations exist between our personal structures, and it's absolutely crucial because it offers a highly testable hypothesis for how we interact in the real world. Which brings us to Section 3, the fibre-bundle hypothesis, visualizing the math.
To really grasp how this works, I want you to imagine what the paper calls the base space. Think of this base space as our shared public playground. It is made up of the universally understood concepts, environments, and languages that we all interact with every single day. So when you and I are talking about a concept, like a traffic law or a math rule, we are meeting up in this shared base space. It's the operationalized structure of public distinctions.
Now, sprouting right out of that shared base space are your private fibers. These are the totally unique, modality-specific ways your own brain realizes that shared concept. So while the base space is entirely public, the fibers are 100% yours. And here's the kicker from the source material: we actually don't need our fibers to match perfectly. We just need them to connect correctly back to the shared base space.
Let's use a super concrete example to make this stick. Think about the number 3. The abstract rule of 3 exists firmly in the shared base space. But your private fiber? Well, your brain might realize it as the visual digit 3, or maybe as a spoken word, or even as a mental array of 3 dots. The realization inside your head is completely idiosyncratic, but the public meaning we share remains exactly the same.
Okay, jumping into Section 4, testing the structural theory, mapping domains in the lab. As researchers test this, they are finding that mapping the mind is definitely not a one-size-fits-all endeavor. Different domains of experience show very different likelihoods of shared structure. For instance, the domain of color has incredibly strong physical constraints because we share similar photoreceptors in our eyes. But look at emotion. Emotion is heavily dependent on allostatic bodily regulation, and it is deeply, deeply tied to your unique personal history. The exact same physiological arousal in the body might be interpreted as pure excitement by you, but as terrifying anxiety by me.
And finally, we arrive at Section 5, understanding without identical minds, the translation of experience.
There's a quote from the paper that just perfectly brings this whole concept into focus. Language provides a powerful but coarse-graining interface between private minds.
Think about what language actually does. It acts as a quotient structure. By coarse-graining our experience, which basically means dropping thousands of totally unique microscopic bodily data points, just so we can say something simple like, I feel sad, we obviously lose a ton of inner detail. But what we gain is the ability to actually cooperate.
Ultimately, the big takeaway from this explainer is that successful communication simply doesn't require identical brains. It just requires 3 steps. First, we coordinate in the public-based space using shared actions. Second, we make context-bound, partial translations of our inner worlds. And third, this results in sufficient commensurability. Basically, we're just similar enough to work, build, and live together. No identical inner identities required.
And that leaves us with an incredibly profound question to ponder as we wrap up today. If we literally don't need identical minds to understand each other, what else can we translate? If the architecture of human understanding relies on dynamic relationships rather than exact carbon copies, then the boundaries of empathy, connection, and communication are vastly wider than we ever assumed. Makes you look at every conversation a little differently, doesn't it?